How powerful are Eversor Assassins? Can they beat a Khorne Berserker? Can they kill a Primarch? What about a Solitaire? Most people think of 40k as massive battles, gods of war slamming each other apart, as worlds burn to the tune of laughing gods. But there is, however, another war, one waged unseen within the Imperium's shadow. This is the realm of assassins, every one of them an apex killing machine, deployed only in the most extreme circumstances. The Eversor Assassin is said to be a one-man apocalypse, a drug-fueled berserker that can slaughter entire armies by themselves, and rip apart a space marine head to toe with their bare hands. But let's see how powerful Eversor Assassins truly are. First, we will go over the lore, trying to understand how truly terrifying these guys are. Then we will cover the excerpts in which we see them slaughter their foes, and some hilarious lore inconsistencies, ending with a ranking on the 40k power scale. So stick around until the end to find out what makes them so powerful. And so you can properly argue with your friends why your Eversor should canonically kill their Space Marine captain. The Eversor Assassins are easily the most gruesome and brutal assassins deployed against the enemies of mankind. Each and every single one of them is a stem-crazed berserker, driven into insanity and gifted with both superhuman strength and speed, the mind of a tactical genius, and a whole host of augmentations designed to mold them into seemingly supernatural killing machines. One such augmentation is a pair of adrenal ducts connecting to the lower brain stem. They speed up their brain's higher functions, allowing them to process enormous amounts of battlefield information and make tactically sound decisions in a fraction of a second. Eversors can survive briefly within the hard vacuum of space, and can fight non-stop for days on end without really tiring, only requiring a quick flex to continue. They are given a second heart, not just for the added survivability in case the first is damaged or destroyed, but also to ensure they maintain an excessively high heart rate, demanded by such a biochemically enhanced body. On top of all of this, they are routinely pumped full of enhanced combat drugs designed to both enhance their reflexes, but also refracture their sanity, rendering them psychotically insane. Whereas other assassins attempt to conceal themselves in their ghastly work, Eversors are deployed when the Imperium wants to send an exact and bloody message. These assassins want to be seen, they want to be heard. They do not attempt to hide themselves of the carnage they inflict, and often scream at the top of their lungs as they butcher their way through hordes of enemies. They are the Imperial masters of shock and terror tactics, the sheer brutality they unleash, sending crippling waves of panic throughout the enemy ranks. The gory aftermath they leave behind acts as a warning to all those who seek to transgress against their emperor. When deployed, Eversors only commit mindless slaughter, butchering their way through hundreds of heretics, leaving behind a figurative and sometimes literal mountain of corpses. If other assassins are akin to a surgeon's scalpel, a delicate razor designed to cut only corrupted flesh while minimizing collateral damage, then the Eversor by comparison is like a nuclear warhead. A killer trained to wipe out entire criminal organizations, heretical families, Xenos command hierarchies, and chaos cults in the most unsubtle way imaginable. Their physical strength, endurance, and speed are frankly silly, even when considering they aren't wearing any kind of power armor. They can, quote, punch a bunker door off its hinges, rip a Tyranid in half, tear a Chaos Space Marine head from its shoulders, and ignore the most grievous of wounds with terrifying ease. So with all this in mind, it is no wonder that the Eversor Assassins are to be kept in cryostasis until required once again, upon request from an Imperial Inquisitor, petrified noble, or maybe even a local chapter master. An Eversor is dispatched to exact bloody slaughter. They are awakened as their drop pod is already halfway through atmospheric entry, mission parameters being uploaded directly to their brain, and their twin hearts thundering in their chest, as hyperadrenaline stims are pumped through their twitching and aching muscles. Which, if you think about it, is kinda insane. From their perspective, they are either falling from the sky, slaughtering people, or being shut down into a dreamlike state, only to do it all over again. Eversors know nothing besides this life. No family, no friends, no interactions. Only murder, locations that mean nothing to them, and chemicals being pumped directly into their veins to keep sending them into an uncontrollable rage. It ain't much, but I guess it's honest work. If the mission is a success, his allies will bait him back to his pod, where he will be sedated, restrained, and placed back into cryostasis until his next deployment. If the mission is a failure, and the Eversor dies mid-fight, the results are quite explosive. You see, Eversors have so many bubbling acidic chemicals constantly being pumped into their bloodstreams that it requires a combination of both his passively enhanced immune system and conscious effort via his advanced cerebral cortex implants to maintain safe chemical levels. The moment both those hearts stop, and the assassin loses control. All of the drugs are slammed down to 100% and violently react with each other. A couple seconds later, a nuclear warhead-like detonation engulfs those unlucky enough to be killing this thing. Standard issue equipment for the Eversor assassins takes the form of a neuro gauntlet and an executioner pistol. The neuro gauntlet looks like a glove, each digit ending in a long lethal blade attached to a reservoir of neurotoxins that injects with lethal pressure. The blades are incredibly sharp and capable of ripping through both flesh and armor with ease. But when plunged into the victim's chest, the glove will instantly start pumping neurotoxins right into them, killing them horrifically in the matter of seconds as their organs explode with both pressure and chemicals. The executioner pistol on the other hand, literally, is a combination bolt pistol needler. It switches between both mass reactive bolts to poisonous darts that overload the target with neuroactive agents to give them a stroke on the spot. Fun fact, due to their lives spent only shedding blood, many Eversors form a close attachment or bond not too dissimilar to that of a parent and their child with their actual guns. If someone steps between them and their armory, let's just say the results can be as expected. So now that you know their loadout and purpose, I will repeat it again. They are deployed to send a message. The High Lords of Terra, the Inquisition, and even local noble houses want their message to be spread. When people know monsters like this exist, they will be sure to behave. One of these Eversor assassins, Custdes Crux, had become known as the Emperor's Fiend. One of the most badass titles in all of 40k, by the way. During what is recorded as the Myzalan Heresy, where groups of cultists popped up and started riling up the masses, the Emperor's Fiend would be unleashed. And within 3 short weeks, they had rightened the souls of those willing to turn against the Emperor. He had slaughtered tens of thousands of terrified people for the actions of only a few. The result was brutal, yet the heresy was rectified before it spread into full-blown rebellion. With these kind of numbers, many people believed that the victim lists were fabricated, that the heresy didn't run that deep, and that only a select few individuals died. But no, instead, it is the opposite. It was far more brutal than human words are capable of describing. The small fraction of recruits that survived the initial wave of training in both the Schola Progenium and then the Assassinorum Temple will be whittled down even further as many more will be left dead on the surgery table. The surgeries are invasive, the adrenal ducts a hazard for the brainstem, and above all, those first doses of stims could result in an explosive surprise. To combat this low success rate, only the youngest recruits are sent as initiates to the Eversor Temple, as the extensive swath of genetic alterations required for their ascension requires a body that has only begun to fully develop. Even those who do survive the transition will never know what it is like to just be a regular kid. Unlike other assassins, who at least got to experience their childhood, they will have no idea of what it means to be a human, or what they're fighting so hard for to defend. They are the perfect killing machine, and their mere name is feared for a reason. So with that dramatic lore section out of the way, let's look at how strong they actually are. We have seen how they can kill tens of thousands of cultists and rebels in the matter of mere weeks, and we see examples of them tearing apart Khorne berserkers with a single swipe. While there are many worthy opponents for an Eversor to face off against, there are a few more capable or challenging than a Harlequin Solitaire. Although these deadly actors more than deserve their own video, where we further explore their power and capabilities. Don't worry, it's coming soon. To put it briefly, a Solitaire is blessed by the Laughing God, but also has the horrific duty of playing the role of she who thirsts among their kind, moving from craft world to craft world, and even enters Gomorrah without risk. It has been described that a Solitaire moves faster than a naked eye can follow, fast enough to literally run up fortress walls. A Solitaire, when colliding with the enemy, brings forth what can only be described as raw butchery, as his enemies fall before even knowing what hit them, creating a, and I quote, "blood falls like a monsoon rain in the wake of a killer too fast to be seen." Thankfully for this comparison, we do not have to ask ifs or buts, as we see directly what happens when a Solitaire and Eversor meet, as seen in the 8th edition Harlequin Codex. Imperial Governor Silas Gorondine was in for a rather bad day as the 13th Black Crusade caused the Astronomicon to flicker, causing the Noctis Eterna, where everything went dark. To make matters worse, the Spectre of Despair began to stalk the Governor, a Solitaire offering no explanations, but it was clear it came to bring death to the Governor. With neither reason nor force enough to save Silas from the Solitaire, he was trapped within the Nykel system with no hope of escaping. The Governor would flee from world to world within the system, expending entire regiments of bodyguards, all of which would be cut down to ribbons by the Spectre of Despair in a matter of seconds. This hunt would climax in the fortified palace on Nykus Secundus, where the Governor gave into desperation and managed to abuse his rank to acquire the deployment of a single Eversor. When the Xenos assassin and Eversor assassin crossed paths, they began a swift battle all across the fortified palace. What few guards remained were butchered for simply being caught in their path. But the Solitaire would be put on the back foot. Being severely wounded, he would opt for a Pyrrhic victory instead of a raw defeat. Drawing the insane Eversor into the governor's sanctum, the Eversor would be dealt a fatal blow, causing a bioplasmic meltdown which obliterated the Eversor, Solitaire, and even caught the governor in the blast. Although the Eversor failed his mission in this story, it cannot be denied that he was more than a match for the powerful Solitaire. Our next story takes us back to the War of the Beast. More specifically, that time the Grandmaster of the Officio Assassinorum committed a coup to seize power from the High Lords of Terra. It would be left to Maximus Tane, who had rebuilt the Imperial Fist with various successor chapters, to confront Vangarich, Grandmaster of the Assassins, a confrontation that happened in the Eversor Temple on Terra. Vangarich had led the Space Marines into a trap. 150 venerable battle brothers of the Imperial Fist would fight 100 Eversors. The Dropos which contained the assassins came out of the floor, and although they still needed to be awoken, the Space Marines would find no advantage, as the pods had thick armor capable of protecting their occupants from bolter fire. When the Eversors awoke, the room was covered in smoke. They moved fast enough that the Space Marines had a hard time hitting their targets. It would be the hardest fights these Astartes ever fought. The Eversors would take first blood, taking down dozens of Space Marines with their nightmarish gauntlets. The Imperial Fist would form a defensive formation, back to back. A few assassins managed to attack them from the rear, taking down more Astartes before being obliterated. The Eversors died in messy deaths, and when they exploded, they would bring down more of the Fists. The Space Marine firing line would be broken and forced into a desperate melee, where the Eversors sadly excelled. Their numbers dwindled from 100 to 75 to 50 to 20 to 10. At first, Tane saw only wild berserkers, but as he fought on, he was awed by their skill. The Eversors challenged the Space Marines as the pinnacle of transhuman warriors. When a Neurogauntlet found its mark on Tane, it would be the worst pain he'd ever experienced. He was paralyzed, and by the time he stood back up, he would be the last Space Marine standing. Miraculously, however, Tane lived with only a final Eversor and Vangarich remaining. At first, Vangarich ordered the final Eversor to stay his hand, wishing to go to Chapter Master one final time. During this moment of hesitation, however, the Eversor, who was once known as Assad Wire, would do something rather surprising. Now, to give a quick rundown of Assad, he was an assassin of a different temple used by Vangarich to achieve various goals and missions. But when he defied his master, he would be converted into an Eversor. He remembered it now, clear as day, and he tore into the assassin master. To summarize, Eversors are not only more than capable of taking down Space Marines, they are capable of defeating them in confined space while being numerically outnumbered. It is a fair assessment to say that your average Eversor would be more than capable of taking on at least 2 Astartes at once. This excerpt also goes to show how formidable Eversors are. They are still capable of being defeated and resisting their psycho-indoctrination. The Eversor has a rather impressive track record, even if there are some shortcomings. Which leaves us wondering, what is the biggest threat a single Eversor can take down? Solitaires have killed Custdes before, even though they may have been a lore mistake from the original writer. But can an Eversor kill a Custdes? How would the fight between them go? Speed-wise, the Eversor can keep up, but are his weapons enough to penetrate the armor of a Custodian? The Neurogauntlet had an easy time tearing apart the vambrace of Maximus Tane, but on the other hand, Tane was able to kill an Eversor with a well-placed blow from his power sword. The Custodian would definitely outlast the Eversor in physical prowess and sheer protection, but I question whether an Eversor is faster or slower than a Custodies. The Custodies would win, but it would not be an easy fight, and if those Neurogauntlets make proper contact, his diminished speed might prove fatal. Against anything more formidable than a Custodies or Solitaire, such as a Primarch or powerful Psyker, it might be better to send in an execution force, rather than a lone killer. Of course, with the volatile nature of the Eversor, when having to work with another assassin, it takes a great deal of preparation and planning for all those involved. Yet, what happens when this goes wrong? On the world of Tug Rock Secundus, a recruitment world for the Imperial Guard, the Abhuman Goliaths developed a blood cult in which they consumed their planet's ruling class. During this incident, the Imperium would suffer a catastrophic amount of miscommunication, resulting in at least 6 Eversors. Yes, this right here means there could have been sent even more assassins, dispatched to slay the leaders of the rebelling Abhumans. By the time the mission was complete, the entire moon was scoured of life and only a single Eversor would be recovered, soaked in traitor and loyalist blood. To this day, this incident, known as the Cull of Goliath, is used as a cautionary tale of the danger of sending more than one assassin at a time. But with this nightmarish level of collateral damage, when faced with another one of their kind, it only leaves us wondering, what would happen when an Eversor ends up fighting an assassin from a different temple? Would they hold back at all? We all know the big 4 temples where the Officio draws his agents from. Some of you might also know of 2 smaller temples, the Venenum and Clades. Yet there is also a 7th temple, and I'm probably gonna butcher this name. The Maioris Temple stands out from the other as it is the newest temple formed by the Officio Assassinorum, but not only that. It would create the deadliest assassin and would be a horrible failure of an experiment. So far, and I'm just gonna refer to it as the Mayor Temple because I can't actually say this word. So far, the Mayor Temple has only ever produced a single operative, Legien Strasse. Her creation, however, was unsanctioned, as it used many forbidden technologies and even Xenos genetic materials. Legion is a particularly horrific assassin, as she is capable of consuming the biomass of her victims to increase her size and power, capable of turning her body into armor and sprouting various weaponized limbs. She is in every sense of the word a living weapon. Legion would escape confinement, but her threat grew as she would create more and more of her own kind. She would be tracked down by a Grandmaster of the Vindicare Temple and a Grandmaster from the Colexis Temple. Although these 2 Grandmasters could take down just about any target, they knew that even this single Maioris proved nearly impossible. To secure their mission success, a single Eversor assassin was kept in reserve, and the 2 Grandmasters would use Darnat Lysander of the Imperial Fist to aid in taking down their target. In a single fight, Legion would cause catastrophic damage, killing multiple Space Marines and the Colexis Grandmaster. She would even best Lysander in single combat. In their final confrontation, Legion would continue to kill and consume the biomass of more Imperial Fists, outsmarting Lysander at every turn. Yet when the single Eversor appeared, it would all change. Having grown to a monstrous form, the Eversor chased Legion down, and in the opening minutes of their duel, would chop off limbs and rent apart her chitinous armor. The 2 monsters would rip into one another, blood and limbs flying quite literally everywhere. The Eversor fought with reckless abandon for his own safety, and the Maioris used this to her own advantage as the 2 wrestled. The Eversor would lose his executor pistol along with his hand. Moments later, his neuro gauntlet, along with his whole arm, was ripped from his stim-pumping socket. Yet even in this armless state, the Eversor refused to back down. Legion disemboweled him, she ripped open his throat, and he gave way, but only fell over once she attacked him again. Before the Eversor would explode in a bioplasmic nuclear detonation, Darnat Lysander secured the Eversor's victory by pinning them both in place by throwing the black blade of a fallen Emperor's champion through the Eversor into the monster's body. After the nuclear blast, Lysander would ensure nothing remained of the Maioris by throwing her body into a pit of lava. Now for the power skill level. For 40k we use a definitely scientifically proven rating of 40 Warhammers. If a Guardsman is 1 Warhammer, a Space Marine equals 10 Warhammers, and the Emperor of Mankind is about 40 Warhammers. How many hammers can we give to the Eversor? As shown by the lore and excerpts we have covered today, the Eversor most definitely has its strengths and weaknesses. But all things said, the fact that they can go toe to toe with the likes of a Solitaire and the Maioris goes to show that the Eversor is most definitely not a lightweight. As on both occasions, he delivered a great deal of damage, and did sort of succeed. He skills very well against targets that are better, smarter, or flat out more dangerous. Therefore, the Eversor has most definitely earned 18 out of 40 Warhammers, and would be my go-to assassin for sending a message to my enemies. And that does it for today. Which is your favorite assassin and why? Do you think I should have given the Eversor a higher or lower score? If you guys know of any more excerpts of crazy Eversor feats, post them down in the comment section below. I would love to read them and learn even more about these blood-crazed maniacs. What should I cover next in the How Powerful is X series? Please let me know your suggestions down below. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video, like if you haven't already, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye bye.